Hey, welcome to the Thursday Checkdown. I'm your host, Greg Kellogg. I'm joined today by Tipp Major, my co-host, and Jack Lucenay, who is trying to convert me to a WWE fan. He wants me watching those wrestling shows like movies, which I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'll tell you,
Wait,
Jack,
wait, wait,
if
wait,
I'm going to
wait,
watch
wait, wait.
something like a movie, it's going to be a tropical island in the Philippines with the blue water and the bikini babes. I'm sorry.
Wait,
What were
Greg.
you
So
saying, Tim?
you're telling me you're not a rock fan, Triple H,
I
Hulk
like Rock as a
Hogan.
movie star.
You like him as a movie star. Well, he
I never
started
saw him
as a
wrestle.
wrestler.
I never
You've
saw him
never
wrestle.
seen
I
The
never
Rock
saw him play
wrestle?
football. He was a college
Oh
football
my
player.
gosh! Wow. Okay.
But
I'm
the
learning some
reason
things
we're
about you, Greg.
here
That you,
The reason we're here is because Jack is the host of the worst podcast in the world, which just happens to be one of the best podcasts in the world. It is so much fun. And we want Jack to tell us how to create a successful podcast. Jack, welcome to the show.
My, Greg and Tipp, how the turntables have turned. Both of you have been generous enough to appear on the worst interview show. There's also the worst wrestling podcast and the worst fantasy show. So a lot of worst. It's all in one place. It's on the Worst Sports channel, which is the name of the channel. But really, honestly, just Google Jack Lucenay. It's that easy, right here. Jack Lucenay. You look that up, you'll find my Twitter, my TikTok, and YouTube. All the stuff is there. You can go enjoy all of it.
Hey, Jack, I
well,
got to say,
wait. No.
no, Tip, wait. I got to say, all professional broadcasters use their real names on their Twitter handles. Tip, you do it. I do it. Jack does it. All these people with these fake names, how can you trust anything they say? They're like WWF wrestlers.
It's
Go
funny
ahead,
because
Tip.
for me, it was much more of an
Okay,
accident.
look.
I'm just lazy, and I
I'm
just
good. I'm
turned my
cool.
main handle into my fantasy handle. So it was really more a laziness factor for me.
Well, me too, but we don't tell people that. Tip, what were you saying, buddy? Did we lose Tip?
Are you guys? Can you guys hear me first of all? Because I'm in an area where, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we can hear you. Are
Can
you
you hear me?
working? Yes.
Yeah,
When you talk.
I am actually working right now. You guys caught me at work. But you know what? I said, you know what? Screw it. I came in to go to work for somebody, but I was like, hey, I got to also go to work, especially talking to my guy, Jack. And I get to see Jack in a different form. You got to talk about this haircut and shade. What's going on, bro? You look completely different. You did like a
He looks
180 since
presentable.
last time I saw you. I thought he looked presentable before.
So it's funny because, again, this is just such my personality, and it's like a running joke now with my barber because I have the same barber that I've been using since I moved to where I live now. So for 7 years, I've been going to the same barber, and I go once a year. Every year, I go once a year, usually around May, June, because the mop is just too hot for the summer. I love it. I like rocking the long hair. I can still do it. So I feel like I should do it as long as I can. But unfortunately, yeah, just way too hot in the summer. And especially because this year, rocking down to the FF Expo in Canton, the U.S. a lot warmer than where I'm from in Canada. And then on top of it, I'm planning to hopefully participate in the flag football tournament. So I don't need all that hair weighing me down.
Oh, I got to tell you.
Wait, I got a question. Hold on. Great. Hold on. He said it's hot in Canada. What is the temperature where you are right now? Because
it's hot 90, down there. It's hot everywhere in the U.S. to me because up where I am, I don't know how to convert it, but it's like 15 to 20 usually is what I would say. Like right now outside, it's a little rainy. I'd say it's probably like 18 degrees.
Well, I'm
That's
going to
Celsius
Google
for
that.
everybody. Yeah, that's
70 or
Celsius.
75 for you guys?
I mean, no, it is
Once you get
94
past 80, I'm
degrees.
out.
Okay.
18
yeah.
degrees is 64.4 degrees
Oh,
Fahrenheit.
oh, Jack, you
Yeah,
need to
see,
stop,
I'm a
bro.
polar bear. That's
Yeah.
how I am.
We're in the 90s, which is, I would
Yeah.
guess, about 32, 33 for you.
Yeah, so I won't survive if I go down there with all my hair.
Hey, it can be an insulator too. You stick some ice up under your cap, you wear a cap, and you feel cool. Hey,
No, it's
listen,
heavy and everything, but yes,
how
let's move. Let's go.
how did you get the worst? How did you come up with the idea of the worst podcast?
So it's funny with my show, and you brought me on to discuss how to build a successful podcast, which I think is kind of ironic and hilarious because I've done the complete opposite with my show. I've done everything humanly possible to not make it successful. And in spite of myself, we've had some small amounts of success. But I named it the worst because we started off actually as the Fantasy Joker. That was kind of my moniker. That was the name of the channel and everything. But I kind of always knew that I was going to sort of outgrow that. And I was always looking for something where I could really just be me. Like I just wanted to represent myself as Jack Lucenay, kind of as Greg alluded to earlier. And it's an homage both to my wife and my sense of humor, where I have kind of a darker, more depraved sense of humor. I don't always let that out in the fantasy space, sometimes a little bit. But also my wife, one of her favorite shows is You're the Worst. When we first met and started talking, it was one of the shows she recommended to me. I still have not watched it all the way. I've seen episodes though, and it's a really good show. So if you guys are out there, you can check up on You're the Worst. There's a show recommendation for you. But yeah, so it was kind of an homage to that as well. And I was thinking my channel very much when I started it, and still to this day, the idea was this is a hobby for me. I'm not trying to be a professional. I'm not trying to take this anywhere. I don't want sponsors. I don't want ads. I don't want to do any of the typical things that you would have on a successful podcast. So it's kind of like, well, everybody else is trying to be the best. I'm actively trying to be the worst. So let's just call it the worst. And then I was like, that's got to be taken. No, wasn't taken. Figures, because who wants to be the worst? So I took it. That's me now. I'm the worst.
Yep.
I mean, I love it because you said it's a hobby. So to me, it sounds like it needs to start with it being fun. Is that correct, Jack? Because if it's not fun, then it doesn't become a hobby. It becomes a job, right?
Well, so I wanted to show this because when I do people's shows, I actually prepare a ton. And I do like a lot of notes and stuff. It's like that's the kind of work I do when I go on someone else's show and I want to represent not just myself, but you guys as well, because you invited me here. I want to, do good on your show. So for me, when you're coming at it from a professional aspect versus a hobbyist aspect, you kind of start from two different places, but it doesn't matter which of those places you start from. Number one is always going to be the passion to take on the undertaking. Because even me with my Muppet channel, I'm editing, I'm creating the content, I'm doing all the back end, I'm doing the SEO. It's a lot of stupid work, even for just my hobby. And even with that, there's a couple things I got to pay for. So I consider it like a sunk cost of like, yeah, if you were to join a club, there'd be a fee to join that club. Well, this is my fee that I pay to be in this little club for my fun little hobby. But again, just going back to even when you take it from that, it's a grind. And so you have to have a passion. And so even if you came at it from initially, my goal is, I want to build this into a business and I want to either sell that business or I want to move on to in the industry. Like you have to come at it from a place of love and passion, or else yeah, it's going to become robotic, and people can tell, and it comes out in your content.
Yes.
Well, and you have fun on your show. I know that you are not G rated. I'm a G rated show. But occasionally we get a guest that lets slip the, let's say, four-letter word, work, for example. To me, that's a four-letter word. I don't want to hear that word because I enjoy play much more than work. So you come from a R-rated comedy, right?
Yeah, that was a very, again, pointed decision that I made at the beginning, because if you're going to start a business minded channel, like if you're going to start a fantasy channel, you want to reach the most amount of people, don't do that. Make it family oriented, because you're going to have a wider approach and appeal. But that's just not who I am, right? It's not, that would be a false representation of myself. And I would spend a lot of time really having to monitor my speech, which is something I'm doing literally right now. Not, and again, it's not like I come at it from an approach of, just because my show is R-rated comedy doesn't mean that every other word is going to be a swear word. It just means that when I want to drop swear words or drop a certain joke, or sometimes even it can be as simple as, like, I'll talk about politics and religion on my show in a way that other people are simply afraid of, because again, and I get it, you're thinking about, maybe somebody sees this and this excludes me from a future opportunity, and I don't want that. And so I get that, but that's not who I am again. And I come at it from a very different approach of, I don't need anybody else for this. This is my little thing in corner. And I don't, it's funny because, like, the way I game is the same way. A lot of people have this concept of me, because I test video games for a living, that I would be like this huge gamer and online all the time. But when I play video games, frankly, I prefer older games, and I don't play online. I want to kind of shut the world out. And my channel is kind of a version of that, in the sense of, obviously I'm going to collaborate and I'm going to have fun and do things with people, but I'm not beholden to anyone. If I want to shut it down tomorrow, I absolutely can. If I want to change things tomorrow, all of that is just kind of up to me at all times. And it's always going to be that way for this very specific channel. And I've already dabbled in doing other things. I write for Fantasy Football Advice Forum, and shout out to Tyler Bradley, who runs that site, gives me a lot of creative liberties. But even then, it's like there's certain things where if I want to put it on the site and he says no, that's totally fine. That's up to him. It's his site, and I would totally respect that. And I could edit it. I could change it. I might come up with an idea for him, and it's something else. And, that's not something I wanted to ever have happen again in my little corner. It's like, this is where I get to come have fun. And so I knew that, again, coming at it from a very hobbyist aspect, that I was never going to do a lot of the things that would make me, quote unquote, a successful podcast. But, like, I think people buy into that because it's real.
Yeah, but isn't success really in the eye of the beholder? If you have three people that laugh uproariously at your show every week, and they come back every week, that's a success in my eyes, because you're happy doing it and they're happy listening to it. To me, there's so many podcasts out there now. There really are. And some of them have great fantasy advice. Some of them have what I consider to be lousy fantasy advice. Some of them have humor. I always like humor because I can't be funny. I mean, I can occasionally be funny, but I'm not trying to be. That's the key, is I don't know how to be funny. I can't sing and dance. So to me, I know how to do stats. I know how to look at stats and look for trends. And Tipp, what is your niche? What do you see as your strength in podcasting?
I mean, you would have to ask people, because I just try to come out there with the approach of being more, I guess, humorous, but also being real at the same time. I'm a stats guy, but I'm not gonna go hit you in the mouth with a bunch of crazy stats and like over analytical type stats, because the type of people that I'm looking to target are more somebody who's maybe just starting fantasy, or maybe been doing it for a couple of years now. And the know-it-alls, or the people who have been doing it for years, they may or may not listen to me. They may like what I have to say, but I try to go out there and do the research, but then try to put some little humor behind it when I was writing, just a little bit, nothing too crazy. Don't go over the top. But if I felt like something was funny to me, well, then I think it's funny. So, I kind of, it's almost like, well, if I think it's funny, it's funny. And it's not being egotistical. It's just like, hey, I thought it was a good one. I thought I could actually, tie that in. And I love how Jack is talking about, this being a hobby, because it can be humbling to us, because, you see certain things that other people are doing and other people have accomplished, and it's great, and we all root for them, and you want to do the same, and you want to do great as well. And I love Jack's approach, because it's almost like I could care less what the outcome is. I'm having fun. And that's the way I look at it. We all, well, myself, Jack, Greg does not, but we all have jobs outside of this podcasting world, this fantasy football world. That is more of a hobby / passion of ours. If we get found, or I feel like I've had a lot of success here, in the short amount of time that I've done it. That's great, but it's not all about that for me. It's about really helping people and, giving people advice. Greg always talks about it. 40% of the time, we're not going to be right, but it's just about that, or we are going to be right. And it's just about how much we believe in it. And, if it's a troll that tries to come into the spot, I love it, because I know how to handle a troll. I have thick skin. Jack seems like he has very thick skin. I know that he can rumble with the best of them. Greg, same thing, because we've all had trolls try to come into our cipher, and we know how to handle it. So that's another thing, Jack. I want to ask you, how do you handle a troll? Because I know you've gotten them.
So it's funny, because I do get them. I get them actually pretty routinely. I open myself up to it, but I don't think they realize what they're falling for, the trap card. If you come trying to troll me, like, you are the heckler in the audience and I'm the comedian. That's literally how I look and treat it as. And I don't even do it. Again, you kind of mentioned, again, for me, it's a hobby, but, just in general, when you're coming from an entertainment aspect, you have to pop yourself. Like, you have to believe in what you're doing. And I know Greg hates pro wrestling, so I'm going to make the pro wrestling analogy. And I often draw from pro wrestling. There's so many life lessons I draw from it, ironically enough. One of those is you take your personality and you turn it up to 11. And then, again, you treat it like ring psychology. So again, reacting to the crowd. If someone makes a comment, I love when someone says something like, "Oh, bro, you don't have any followers and your podcast sucks and you're the worst." I'm like, yeah, that's what it's called, bro. Good job.
Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. Hey, first I want to say thanks to everybody that's in the chat and listening. We really appreciate you being here. I'm not going to call you out by name, but I do want to call out Mike from Surf Football, because he's our guest next week. And Mike's going to talk about building a website and different games, because he's got some good games coming up. But Jack, I got to tell you, I actually love your podcast. I love your attitude. And I don't hate WWF. I'm just apathetic about it. When I first started, I wouldn't watch it, because to me it was just too fake. And because of that, it's hard to develop hard feelings one way or the other unless you're passionate about something. And I'm just not about that, because I had friends that were actual wrestlers that put their bodies on the line. And so wrestling, it's like, I would rather watch college kids play basketball than the NBA. Now, I think the NBA is a very serious league. I don't think it's scripted, but I think college kids have fun playing the game. You know what I mean? So when you do a podcast, how much does you having fun as opposed to the audience having fun factor into how you design it?
So for again, and this is very much the opposite of what you should do if you're trying to have a successful show. You should always keep the audience in mind in a sense of you should be trying to entertain, and that can mean a lot of different things. Being entertaining doesn't always mean being jokey. Just to use a reference from Batman, ironically enough, I always hated when writers write Batman as delivering jokes. So, like in the Nolan verse, for example, when he says stuff like, "Oh, I'm not wearing hockey pads" or whatever, it's like that's not Batman's true character. Batman is actually hysterical as a straight man. So they get that right a lot more in like the animated universe. Where it's like, again, you can be a good straight man. So you don't have to be jokey to be entertaining. Being a good straight man, there's being a good analyst. There's all kinds of ways about going about it. The way that I go about it, though, again, because it is a hobby for me, is I write shows for two reasons. I write shows because I'm going to try and deliver information in kind of a relaxed, like friend to friend way for more casuals to slightly advanced. Like, I'm obviously not here to cater to like the super advanced analytic, like I've been playing for 20 years and I want the super deep like yards per catch guy. Like, that's not me, and it never will be. So I definitely come at it from an aspect of, okay, well, I know that there's going to be, and I think it gets lost too of like how many people are actually true beginners. Like, I've only been playing for a couple years. I've never been in a Dynasty league. I've never played Superflex. Like, I've never played IDP. Like, all of these different variations. And so because I have that expertise and the ability to deliver it in a way where it doesn't feel like, boring, for lack of a better word, I will come at it from a learning aspect of trying to like, hey, this is the information I have. I'm trying to teach. Also because I have a lot of contrarian views. And it's funny because a lot of times they'll align with Greg for various different reasons. Sometimes I feel I'm a little bit of a
You're
throwback.
crazy.
Have an old school mentality.
You're crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm talking about like the way you value running back still.
That's just because I'm an old man that can't change my ways. Old dog, new tricks,
But part of that is, and again, I feel like generationally, I was like the last true millennial of like the elder millennials. Like, I was there before the internet was actually big, but then I grew up with the internet being huge. So, I kind of got to see both worlds. Like, I was there for phones were still attached to the cords. I was there for fax machines. I was there for all that. I was there for you go to the library and go through the index cards. Like, we did all that. But then I was there for the rise of digital cable. I was there for MSN. I was there for the rise of YouTube and Facebook and the creation of, and, watching those kinds of things skyrocket. So there are a lot of contrarian views that I still have. And so and I don't do it purposefully. And that's something that really bugs me is about analysts in general, is when you're being contrarian just to be contrarian. I saw a guy put up a graphic. I'm not going to name the person. I don't want to like bring heat on them, but they were like my top 10 tight ends this year. And they had like Cole Kmet at number 5, and they had like Trey McBride at like number 9, and like Dalton Kincaid wasn't even on the list. It's like, come on, you're just being a little bit, you're being contrarian to the point of being facetious and ridiculous, and everybody can see it, and it's clickbait at that point, and that's just not a type of content that I enjoy. So I definitely never say anything that I don't believe, but I definitely can go off on weird tangents. Like last year, just as an example, I was super out on Kyle Pitts. I had a whole segment through the whole year which was one of my best segments of who scored more than Kyle Pitts this week. It was fantastic. We even did like one at the end of the year that was a whole poem. It was amazing. My magnum opus. But it's just to say, like, again, I did all that stuff to pop myself. Like, I wrote that whole thing as a poem because I thought it was hilarious. And then I did it, right?
Well, it sounds hilarious. Who scored more than Kyle Pitts as an ongoing feature is funny. I mean, because basically the answer last year was everybody.
Oh, the names that I came up with, I tell you. And again, that last one, I made there's a short of it on my channel somewhere. And that's the other thing I think for me specifically that I enjoy about as a hobbyist. Again, I get to go back and look at old stuff and be like, I remember when I did that. And I can see the growth too, but it's more about like, yeah, I remember when I came up with that joke and how much I thought that was funny. And then I deliver it to the audience after the fact.
Do you get feedback from your friends?
No, because I don't have any here. So it's, again, this is like the other reason that I really started the channel was I desperately needed an outlet. Like, you want to talk about it even just from a mental health aspect. Like, I needed an outlet because I don't just live in Quebec, Greg. I live about 45 minutes north of Montreal, like about an hour north. So that means that when I go out my door here, there's more French-speaking people that don't watch the NFL, don't play fantasy football, like don't even watch American news channels or even Canadian ones. Like, I don't think people realize Quebec actually has like their whole own media with literally they did their own version of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like Quebec media, huge here. So there's people who have grown up here, exclusively speak French, exclusively watch Quebec media, and I live with like a bunch of them. Because again, I'm more removed from like, if I go to Montreal though, it's like everybody speaks English. Like way more people are in touch with football and the NFL and that kind of thing. Like, you get that in Meccas, but you're not going to get that way up here where I live. And the further north you get, the worse it's going to be.
Well, and French Canadians, I'm going to get Tipp back on in a minute, but French Canadians don't think English Canadians are really Canadian.
Well, no, so it's actually, they do think they're Canadian. It's the opposite. French Canadians don't consider themselves Canadians. They consider themselves Quebecois, and they consider that as higher, like, Canadian, higher rank than being Canadian. Oh, you're just Canadian? Go on over to Canada. Like, literally, they will call. I used to have this argument all the time with, again, because I'm this far up north, they'll say, oh, you're from Canada. I'm like, no, I'm from Ontario. They're like, yeah, Canada. I'm like, you live in Canada too. Quebec is in Canada. I hate to break it to you.
Tipp, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, I just, first of all, man, I love the attitude. It's something that, can get lost in it because, if somebody was to knock on our door tomorrow or give us a phone call tomorrow or DM us tomorrow with the sponsor, I mean, yeah, of course you would want to take it, but it's like, to me, it's almost like, it's not that you don't care if it happens. You just are like, hey, look, if it happens, great. But I'm going to continue to do what I do. So my question to you is, how do you get prepared for your shows? Or is it something you do weekly? Is it something that you do monthly? The creativity, where does that come from? I just need to know like those aspects of it, because when you do a podcast or when you start a podcast, there are some people who just get on a mic and start talking. Maybe they have a partner or they just start talking, but there are some people who have a layout as well. So I just want to know, what are some of the things that you do?
So it's funny because I shared the meme right before, this show to kind of say like, hey guys, come watch this show. When I prepare my shows, and if I'm going to be by myself, there's like little to no preparation at all. It's I have a topic and I'm going to wing it. That's how I do my shows. I've lived a lot of my life that way. But when it comes to other people's shows, or if I'm having someone else on a show, that's where I can't do that to other people. And, I've done it before, unfortunately and famously, Greg was at a time where I wasn't really doing write-ups all the time for the worst interview, for example. So when I do my interview show, if someone didn't specifically request a show doc, I just wouldn't send one. Like I didn't have one because I was winging it. So I figured they would too. And then I realized, like, you shouldn't do that, though. And Greg kind of even said it to me. It was Greg taught me that because I asked him a question on the show, and he said, like, I don't think he meant to teach me the lesson in that moment, but he said, like, you should have sent that to me beforehand. And it's funny because then I thought back to something else I had seen online from – it's a really famous analyst. I'm forgetting his name, and I'm sorry because this happens to me all the time because I live in Quebec and under a rock. So there's like super famous analysts that I genuinely do not know. I have no idea their names and stuff. It's Kyle Brandt, I think is his name. Is that right? Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Okay, that guy. He was like, he did a whole spiel about he didn't want to do podcasts anymore. And a lot of people kind of took that the wrong way. But when I watched, I was like, he's giving good advice. He's actually telling you all the crappy things about when you get all these random podcast invites. Because, yeah, everybody and their grandmother has a podcast nowadays. And so I remember that being like, I'm not going to do a lot of those things. But I did one of those things to Greg. And then when I did, and Greg kind of meant, I was like, even though I'm the worst, I shouldn't expect people to have to do that. And so now for the worst interview, every single time I send out a show doc, even if the worst fantasy show, if I'm having people on, I send out a show doc. I make one and I send it out. I try to do it, at least minimum a couple days before, if not like a week before. Really try to like set up the shows now more ahead of time. But if it's just me, yeah, no, there's no prep, like none. What the prep is, I wrote like 3 notes on my phone, or more often than not, my prep involves, let's find really funny meme drops that I can roll while I'm doing my show.
Does your prep change in season and off season?
In season, it has to a little bit, but this is where, again, because I do my show as a hobby and because I do my show from a comedy aspect, I don't have to do certain things that other shows have to do. So just a simple example would be waivers. If I don't want to do a waiver show, I don't have to. I've done shows where I'll say, hey, instead of doing waivers this week, check out so-and-so's waivers. And that's actually another important aspect. Sorry, just to deviate really fast. Another reason that my show, and Tipp kind of brought it up a couple times so I've actually actively turned down sponsorship for this show specifically and partnership for this show. And speaking like of my show, my channel, like I could have gone so many easier routes. And that would be my advice for most people. It's like, don't do what I did. Like for most people, I would say, yeah, take the path of least resistance. So I've mentioned Tyler Bradley earlier on the show. He has Fantasy Football Advice Network. Very early on, he asked me to join, be like a primary analyst, have shows on his channel, and like, again, be a featured analyst. And I said, nah, I'm good, bro. Thanks. Again, through the same thing we talked about, because he recently got sponsorships with Underdog and he brought in analysts to do shows on the channel. We talked about it a little bit and I said, nah, it's not for me. And instead, actually, I went and plucked a couple up and coming analysts that maybe needed an opportunity. And I said, hey, take these guys instead. I've had them on the show. And the fact that I'm able to, and it's kind of like I was in high school where it's like I didn't just hang out with the jocks or the people in the parking lot or, I hung out with everybody. I was the go-between. And I've kind of started to create that for myself and my channel where it's like, I had Big Draft Energy on recently, guy Disco. And I then did a draft show on my own show from Drafters. And I was like, hey, go use his code though. Like, I don't like the whole code thing. It's not for me. So I was like, go use Disco's code. Go check out his channel too. It's like, I love being able to do that on my channel where it's like I don't have to feel like I'm competitive with the person. It's like everybody can eat at my table. So that was
Yes.
another aspect of it. So again, when you say something like, well, if we got the sponsorship, like we wouldn't turn it down. It's like, yeah, I would actually. Like, I'm crazy enough that and again, it's not to say that I'm stupid because like just as an example with the underdog thing with Tyler, it's I didn't say no. I pivoted. I sent some other people and then say, hey, I can do online strictly with my profile. I can do like a little thing and we can do like a temporary thing. And so we set that up and that's ongoing until like September and then I'm done with it forever. So it's like I'll do stuff like that. Again, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to completely turn down good opportunity, but sponsorship on the show, you can't get it. Ads on the show, I mean, obviously YouTube runs ads. I can't help that. But like, if I'm like of the mantra of like, if you pay for ad-free YouTube, like you shouldn't have to then listen to me read ads at the beginning, middle, and end of my freaking show. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like,
I'll take a little bit of an exception. I was on the phone today with Disco and with Josh from Drafters. Um, I was unaware. Drafters is a small shop out of Canada.
yeah,
3 guys run Drafters, and so it's 3 partners. So they're kind of a startup and growing. So I offered, I'll read a spot for Drafters if they get me the copy to read, but it's to promote their show more than it is because I'm not taking any ad revenue. I don't want revenue for this. Now, Tip, he's a younger guy. He would love to get ad revenue and revenue from the show. And I've got no problem with that. But everything depends on your focus. So I'm going to let Tip ask the next question. But I think your focus is more aligned with mine in that we want to do this because we enjoy doing it. We enjoy doing it. Tip, what question do you have?
Well, no,
sorry,
I
just
mean, I think. Go ahead, Jack.
I just want to say real quick before Tip cuts in, I have no problems whatsoever with sponsorship, and I think it's a good thing on other shows, right? Like,
Yeah.
when fantasy footballers do their ad reads, I don't just tune out. Like, again, and I like the way that they do it, where it's like they will pick stuff that they actively use or stuff they believe in. And it's like if you have a real show, you should be actively trying to get sponsorship. Again, my thing is very different where it's like I feel like I would be selling out the core idea of my show and also just who I am and how I want to run things if I were to then be doing like you know what I'm saying? So when I say that, like I don't mean it in a way of like well, it's bad that other people do it. I want to be very specific that is only very much for me, but that's also, part of why I'm just a different cat in terms of like how I operate. Like money is not my beholder. I actively took a job where I make less money because it makes me so much happier. I do things in life like that all the time because life is short. I'd rather be happy. So just to kind of touch on that, it's like I have no problem with other people promoting their business, promoting other businesses, doing partnerships. I think Drafters is tremendous. If I were to be that type of analyst, I would jump on those types of opportunities for companies like Drafters. And even there's others like, shout out to Imran Pervez and Generations apps.
Love them too. Yeah,
Shout
love
out
them
to
too.
Pure Football and the games that he's got coming up on his new app. So there are, people out there and I will promote them on the show, but I get to do it very much in a way where it's like, there's no cog, there's no ad read. It's like, I found this thing, guys, and you should check it out. It's cool. You know what I mean? So I do a lot more, similarly to what you do, Greg, but it's like where you're retired and have that luxury, I think, people look at me like I'm crazy sometimes because I'm the young guy should be trying to take those opportunities. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah,
Well,
money is a driver for too many people, and it's a shame that the world. You have to have a certain level. You have to because you got to eat. But go ahead, Tip.
Well, no, it goes back to me. It goes back to the level of respect you have for football, fantasy football. You got to understand if you try something in any podcast, anything, you got to understand that it's work, right? Yeah, it could be a hobby. Yeah, it could be something you just want to have fun with. But you are essentially you're working. You're working at something. You're working at maybe building a brand. And for me, that's what it's about. It's about building an energetic brand, not necessarily about the dollar signs behind it. Yes, that'll be cool. I wouldn't necessarily turn it down. I don't think any of us really would, but it's just more of like, I just want to have fun. I want to, do this with a sense of camaraderie, a sense of, being real within myself. And, hey, if I make a mistake or if I give bad advice, I don't care. Like it's like I'm sorry I gave you bad advice, but that's what I believed in at the time. And that's the way it should be. Too many times you get too many people down on themselves. Like I remember one time I met this one guy and he was like, "Oh, I was so stupid that I gave that advice to somebody and you were right, Tip." And I was like, "Dude, it's not even about that, man. You believed in it. You did the research. You were just wrong because again, looking back at 40% of the time we're not gonna be we're gonna be wrong or we're gonna be right or whatever. It's just a matter of how can you convey it. You don't want to be a jerk conveying it because there are some people out there that try to make you feel like you're stupid or less than. That's not what we're about. That's what Jack's not about. Man, when I came
But I
on this
am stupid, so I'm okay.
but some people just, and it goes back to what you said. You always say, Greg, if you're a nice person, you'll get ahead in this industry. This industry is not a big, I mean, it is a moneymaker, but it's not you're not going to get rich overnight. There's many other podcasts, many other ways to do an entertainment where you can get, you see it all the time on Instagram where you see these people that just pop up out of nowhere and they're like instant millionaires,
Hey, Tip,
almost overnight.
got to stop you, Tip. Getting rich overnight with drafters is possible. They're having a $2.5 million giveaway. And if you sign up for a drafters account, this is unscripted, by the way, TSA, JC and Iggy and Evan are now rolling with drafters and they have a code. So if you sign up for a drafters account, they will match up to 100%, up to $100 of your initial deposit with TSA bets as a code. TSA BETS. And that's JC did not ask me to do that. Rafters did not ask me to do that. But JC supports us on this show. He's the one that behind the scenes and runs everything for us. And he pays for the StreamYard so that we can even do it. And drafters, like I say, it's a three-man shop out of Canada. And they're rolling against the big boys, the guys that have been doing daily fantasy sports for everybody. So if you want to help TSA, go sign up for a drafters account. And I do believe a certain percentage, a certain amount of money will go to JC and Iggy, and they already invest it back into the TSA. So sign up at a drafters account, and when you make your initial deposit, use the code. Okay, and Sir Football, Mike from Sir Football is asking a question, which I will get to. Use the code, and they'll match up to 100% up to $100. So if you put in 100, you got $200 to gamble with. Now, drafters is a little unusual. I think Underdog has a $1 million prize on theirs, but it costs $350 to enter. For drafters, you can win up to $500,000, and it only costs $15 each time you enter, and you can enter up to 150 times. Or they have another one where you can, I think, win $20,000 grand prize, and that's only $2. That's the one I'm doing drafts in. Is I put in, I think, $25, and I'll be doing 25 drafts because I used Disco's code. Sure Football asks, will drafters be at the FF Expo? That was what today's call was about. Bob Lung asked me to see if I could reach out to some people that do gaming. And I don't really have any contacts in the gaming world because I don't really bet. And my deal with drafters is if I win money, and it doesn't matter how little or how much, that money never comes to me. It goes directly to fantasycares.org. So I've got one entry in that $500,000 entry. If I win $500,000, Fantasy Cares is getting 500,000. I'm never going to see that money. That's my agreement with them because I don't want it. I don't need it, and I don't want the headache that comes with taxes. So if it never comes to me, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to claim it. So that's my deal with drafters. I
I
won't
got
take.
to double down and cut in here for 2 reasons, real quick there, Greg. Number
Sure.
one, drafters available in Ontario, not Underdog. You cannot draft Underdog in Ontario. So if you live in the Ontario region, and that's Toronto, that's like 7 million people. All my friends in Ottawa, all my friends in Sault Ste. Marie, y'all can't draft on Underdog, but you can on drafters. So that's one thing. But the other thing I wanted to say about drafters is because it's newer and I feel like there's still good competition, but the values are different. You can kind of play with things a little bit more over there. So I'm
I
really
like their
enjoying that.
interface. I like their app interface. It's really easy. But as to will drafters be at the expo? Disco is trying to get a table at the expo. I talked to Josh. He does not think they're willing to sponsor an event, which is $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 because they can't realize a return on investment, which makes sense. That's business sense. But they're talking about maybe having Disco down there, and Disco's got to deal with JC. And so if Disco got on a panel, JC or Bayou Bingo or Sleazeball FF, they're all affiliates with Disco. One of them could man his table while he's on the panel. But we hope to have them there, but we don't know for sure right now. We should know by next week if they'll be there. Anyway, Tip, you were going to ask a question.
Oh no, I was good. I was good, Greg.
Oh, okay. Well, then let me ask you a player question. All right. Are you familiar with Scott Fishbowl at all?
Of course, I'm in Scott Fishbowl actually for my second year this year.
So then
Last
you have
year-
played Superflex, and you know what Superflex does to value of players, right?
Oh yeah, I play a lot of Superflex actually, even before Scott Fishbowl. I'm in a Superflex Dynasty League that's been ongoing for 3-4 years. That's actually how I met Tyler Bradley.
Okay.
I was in Scott Fishbowl last year too, and we had a lot of good hits. Actually, we made it pretty far. We made it to I think the quarterfinals. So we did good last year for our first.
I got to the second round of the playoffs. But here's my question. I have pick 6 in the Houston Live Draft. Kelsey is right now going ADP 12. Laporte is going, I think, 10. Get a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of wide receivers go. Should I take Anthony Richardson, Travis Kelsey? I don't think CMC falls to me. If CMC falls to me at 6, I'm taking him. But I don't think he does. So should I take, I'm going to say Richardson, Kelsey, or the top running back, which for me would be Jonathan Taylor. I know Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson are rated higher than him, but on my sheet, Jonathan Taylor's the number 2 running back. Who should I take at number 6?
It's Bijan Robinson. You should take Bijan Robinson 100 million, 1,000%.
He's not one of your choices.
I would take Bijan. I would literally take him over CMC. So I'm just going to put that out there. But if he's not, if it's out of what you just said and I have to choose, like, I don't believe in Anthony Richardson on a season-long yield in terms of fantasy as of yet. Jonathan Taylor, I don't hate that, but I just feel like I'm reaching if I take him at the 106. So if you're forcing me between those 3 players, it's Travis Kelsey. But that's it's the wrong pick, Greg. I'm telling you, it's Bijan Robinson with a bullet. I'm at the 106, by the way.
If I thought Kelsey would go to the second round, mid-second round, I would take Bijan or Taylor over
There's
Anthony
tight
Richardson.
ends. I'm not willing to pay the premium for a tight end. I don't care about the Scott Fish. The fact that the Scott Fishbowl has crazy tight end premium to me means I'm actually willing to wait and take the shots on guys I like later. I would much rather have Jake Ferguson at a value. I would much rather have Evan Ingram at a value. I would much rather have Brock Bowers at a value. Even
Well,
though
you know that Scott Fishbowl scoring this year is
triple tight end premium. I'm very
well
aware.
for running backs it's half PPR. For wide receivers, it's full. For wide receivers, it's full PPR, and for tight ends, it's 2 PPR.
Yep.
Plus, you get a point for every reception. What people aren't realizing is that running backs also get a quarter of a point for every carry, I think, or something like that. They get points for carries, which basically equalizes running backs with wide receivers in terms of scoring.
Yeah, but what Jack is saying, and I've been looking at this now for a couple of months, the tight end position is now, I think, is at its deepest that it's been in years. I mean, back 5-6 years ago, you would say it was Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and that was pretty much it. And now you can get people like Evan Ingram. You can get a person like Brock Bowers, who I think is going to kill it this year.
No, he's not. He's got Michael Mayer there.
No, Greg, you don't understand.
He won't get 80 targets. I'm telling you, he will not get 80 targets.
You don't understand. The Raiders went after this guy, and when they fell in his lap, I'm telling you, I'm really close with these Raiders. I've been watching all of the off-season stuff, all of the off-season interviews. I'm telling you, Greg, this Brock Bowers kid is bringing a lot to the table. He's gonna show you guys, and I'm getting sick and tired of the disrespect for Brock Bowers. He besides Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers in a dynasty league needs to be considered as the third guy. Maybe Brian Thomas, I can get it. I understand that too, but after that, it needs to be Brock Bowers, man, because this kid.
I don't agree with any of your picks.
It's gonna, huh?
I don't agree with any of your picks. I don't think any of those guys is top 3. There's no way Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to put up top 12 wide receiver numbers as a rookie. Yep. He'll be a top 12 rookie wide receiver, but he won't be a top 12 fantasy wide receiver this year. He just won't. Everybody's drafting him like he's going to be the 5th best receiver in the league. He's not.
I think no. 12, but I don't see it much higher than that.
In a rookie dynasty draft, a lot of people are going after those two guys, and I'm telling you, Brock Bowers has to be the third person, in my opinion. I've been on people have been talking about Ladd McConkey. People have been talking about
Blake the Great. I'm telling you.
They've been talking about Jonathan Brooks. I'm like, no. Brock Bowers is the guy.
Brooks may not be ready for the start of the season.
That's what I said. He's not 100%.
We don't know if he's 0% of Jonathan Brooks.
But I will say this though. I agree 100% about Bijan. I think Bijan is up for a monster year. I know they got Tyler Algier there as well, but there's several things that I like. I like the offensive line. I like the upgrade in quarterback. Bijan Robinson catches the ball out of the backfield. He could easily get 50 catches.
Do they have an upgrade in quarterback?
From last year?
But I would say
we don't know who the quarterback is because we don't know if Kirk Cousins is going to be ready.
He's going to. I think ready. He's already ready.
He's already been practicing, Greg.
Yeah. But he hasn't been putting any pressure on that leg, and he hasn't taken a single hit yet because they're not going to take a hit till preseason.
Yeah, but right now,
we don't know. We don't know Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers. So let's turn it to our guest, Jack. Will either or both Kirk Cousins or neither be ready week 1?
I'm going to say both. The Rodgers stuff is really more questionable to me. Kirk actually, because Kirk had happened so early, it was a pretty clean ACL, and he's just not a runner anyways. So it just doesn't affect his game beyond, like you said, Greg, can he hold up to getting hit? But again, my thing with Bijan isn't even just the coach, the quarterback upgrade to me is minor. The coaching upgrade is spectacular.
Massive.
You talk about
Yeah.
going from Arthur Smith to 3/4 of the Rams staff that just had Kyron Williams finish as a top 3 fantasy running back, and now you're going to give them Bijan Robinson, and they already said, yeah, we're going to use him in the CMC role. Bijan last year when people were drafting him, and I was out on Bijan last year because I said he's going to have to break generational rookie records to give value
Live
for
up to what they said, yeah.
To pay off that ADP. But this year, he can absolutely, you look at what he did last year, he had almost, he was pretty close, I think, to 1,500 all-purpose yards, and kind of only had like 7 touchdowns, and that's because Arthur Smith's offense just hates pass-catching running backs, especially dynamic ones. He just wants to quad. So you bring in now the 3/4 of the Rams coaching. This is just going to be – he could legitimately have a 2,000-yard season. And I mean all-purpose, obviously. I'm not saying –
Oh, yeah. He's got the talent to have a 2,000-yard rushing season.
He's got the talent.
Remember, there's an extra game. There's 17 games now. Yeah, there's 17 games now, so that's an extra game.
To where I think if CMC goes off – and I'm sitting there at 106, and I saw the only way I would pivot in a super flex is if one of the real main quarterbacks were to fall to me. Like pulling up a mock draft I did with Nate Povo of Optimus Fantasy, and Hoove was there, Kevin Topinski, Mike Stoyanov. So there's a lot of real solid players. Mahomes went at 106. If Mahomes is there at 106,
I'd go Mahomes at 106. Yeah, I'd go Mahomes.
That's what I'm saying. Like if Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar make it to me, I'm gonna take them. Anybody else, honestly, I'm probably gonna take Bijan because I just think I can get. In this mock, I ended up getting from the 108 Tua and Justin Herbert as my 2 quarterbacks in round 3 and 4, and I was able to have Bijan Robinson and A.J. Brown as my 2 premier players.
Yeah, okay, so Tip, this one's for you. Is Josh Allen the number 1 quarterback again this year? He has been the last 2 years.
No, I think C.J. Stroud's the number 1 quarterback,
Tip?
guys. Yeah, C.J. Stroud's the number 1 quarterback.
No.
I like C.J. Stroud a lot, man.
Oh, God. And Tip's going to be in Houston during the live draft. Hopefully, he'll be drafting with us.
Look,
he's an alternate for the live draft.
I got to tell you this, man. C.J. Stroud, I know he's not a running guy. He's not a running quarterback. I get it.
You got to tell him what?
Huh? Can you hear me, Greg? Can you hear me?
Well, neither Holmes. He's not a running quarterback.
Yeah, they're not running.
Yeah,
guys,
we can.
But look, I will tell you this. I seriously think that C.J. Stroud, and I've been saying this for a minute now, can seriously give a run for this 6,000 yards and beat this record. He has to average 345 yards a game, which we've seen him seen him get 250 yards in one half. So I just with this wide receiver core that they got, the tight end, Joe Mixon coming out of the backfield, I really love C.J. Stroud this year. I just haven't seen anything different. I believe in it.
But you can get him so much later.
You can get C.J. Stroud. Yes, I believe you could possibly maybe get him at the end of the first, maybe early second. So yeah, if you want to get one of those like a Jonathan Taylor,
I think you can get him in the 2nd or 3rd round. But that's it for tonight because it is 7:00 already. I got to thank you, Jack, for coming on, and we got a pitch next week. It will be Mike of Surf Football coming on to talk about his new games that are coming out, his new website. And I think because I am flying on Sunday to Atlanta for my grandson's birthday, I'm supposed to be back on Wednesday, but just in case, Tip will be leading the show next week.
Let's go. I'm ready.
Jack, thank you very much. Tell people where they can find your stuff.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Greg. It was an absolute pleasure. I could have easily done another hour with you guys. Basically, just look up my name. It's honestly the easiest way. Put Jack Lucenay in the search bar, and you'll find all my stuff. So that's on YouTube, on TikTok. That's pretty much it. YouTube and TikTok and Twitter. Jack Lucenay, right there. Boom. Search that.
All right. Thanks. Take us out, JC. Thanks, everybody, for coming.